Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a re-recording of our I Love Data Fridays podcast, our podcast that covered the Reading Recovery Follow-Up Study with the Center for Research in Education and Social Policy at the University of Delaware. And specifically, we in this podcast, we're talking about Cohort 2 data collection. All right, so who's talking data to you today? Well, of course, you've got me, Jeff Brymer-Bashore, Director of IT and Operations here at IDEC, and joining me from the Center for Research in Education and Social Policy at the University of Delaware, I have Dr. Akisha Jones and Allie Englert. Say hi, everyone.
Hello.
So welcome back to take 9 of this. So here's our agenda for today's podcast. Akisha is going to start off by and Allie are going to be giving us an overview of the Reading Recovery Follow-Up Study and specifically about the Cohort 2 data collection. I will also be talking in there about the IDEC part of the data collection and going over the IDEC website. Now, I know that the slides here says a Q&A session and where you can submit questions, but we don't have that for this recorded podcast, but we will be showing you emails where you can send any possible questions that you might have later. All right, well, it's time to talk a little data, so I'm going to turn it over to Akisha. Akisha, it's all yours.
Well, hello, everybody, again. So yes, thank you, Jeff, for the introduction. Today we will be talking about the Reading Recovery Follow-Up Study, specifically in regards to the Cohort 2 students, and I'll explain to you what that means in a little bit. Just as a recap, those of you might recall that there was an initial Reading Recovery Scale-Up Study, and in that study, we found rigorous evidence of impacts of reading recovery on students' their first grade literacy. And so as a result, we designed this follow-up study to look at if those impacts were sustained through 3rd and 4th grades. This current study is a 3-year study. It's funded by IES, and it's conducted here by researchers at CRESP, and that's the Center for Research in Education and Social Policy. So as part of this study, we will be collecting both survey and test data for students who are in Cohort 2. So that would be those students who are in 1st grade in 2012-13. The survey we will talk about a little bit later, and Jeff will go through how to upload the test score data and what specifics we'll be looking for there. Those who are included in this Cohort 2, the schools that are included in this Cohort 2 sample are those who had at least 7 reading recovery students and 2 tested non-instruction students. You all, if you're on this call, you were designated as a data collector for this study, or you have yourself as a teacher leader have decided to collect the data. So we're asking for you all to collect both of those sets of data, the survey data and the test score data. And in return, we will thank you with a $75 Amazon gift card. We get the question often when will we be compensated? After the end of the data collection period, you will get compensated within a month's time. You will receive an email from Amazon with your gift card. And that is to thank you for completing both the test score data, the uploading of the test score data and the survey. Like I said before, we completed Cohort 1 back in March. Data collection, now we're focused on Cohort 2. We've started with the pre-survey in March, and we will continue with the actual survey. The survey will launch April 9th, so that will be next Monday, and it will go through May 18th. You have up until May 18th to complete the survey. In terms of the test score uploading, you can start that anytime, but you also have until May 18th to complete that as well. So as I said, we're going to go through the uploading of test score data and then walk you through the survey. Just so you understand, the reason why we are collecting the test data is to understand what the long-term impacts of reading recovery are. So what that impact was, as well as to measure school level variability. So how much that may have differed across schools, how much those impacts may have differed. Jeff, I will hand it over to you to talk briefly about how to upload the test score data and what we're looking for.
All right, thank you, Akisha. So now, as Akisha says, IDEC will be responsible for collecting the test data score, and we will be doing this on the IDEC website. And specifically, we are collecting 3rd and 4th grade scale scores for reading and English language arts state assessments. So your teachers will be entering 3 things for each grade. The first being the name of the state assessment. The second thing will be the raw score or the scale score of that assessment. And then if the test is missing, a short, brief description of why the data are missing for this student. It doesn't have to be long, just something short. So now, as we've been saying, test data will be entered directly onto the IDEC website, and it can actually be entered by either the teacher leader or the teacher. In cases where the teacher has been in the school since 2012-13, it can be entered by that teacher in that school. There are some scenarios where a teacher leader will have to enter the data. So for example, if you had a reading recovery teacher that was in the school in 2012-13 but then left shortly after, even if you have a current teacher in that school but a different teacher, the teacher leader will have to still enter the data. But you can have the teacher go into your school district's data systems and look up the data and give it to you. So once you've entered the data on the web page on our site, on the web page there for the data collection, all you have to do is click the Save button. There's no need to click the Submit button and then go through that whole check and submit process. If you just click the Save button, it will get saved right into our data system. So let's take a quick look on how we do that. All right, so here we are on the IDEC website, and we're on the student data entry page. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to come over to this school year drop-down list right there. We're going to click on it, and we're going to select 2012-13 school year from that. That'll make our screen refresh. Now, you will see a column labeled on the screen that says U of Delaware follow-up, and this is the column where we will enter our data. So now I'm going to click on this blank page. So you see we have 6 questions on the screen here. The first 3 are dedicated for our 3rd grade questions, and the next 3 are for our 4th grade questions. And each question, first question, it asks, what was the name of the assessment? So you'll type that in there. If there is no assessment, you just type none. For the second question for each of our grades is what was the student's scale score? So you'll just type it right in there. And then finally, we come down to question 3. If the student's score is missing, we just please ask you to briefly explain why it is missing. It doesn't have to be a lot. It can be something like student moved to a new school. That is perfectly fine. And then once we are done, we just come on over and click the Save button, and that will save the data into the data system. And there you go. That's it.
So you can start the uploading of the test score data anytime. As I've stated before, you will actually this go around have to submit that test score data prior to completing the survey. So you can get a start on that any day. So now we'll go into the actual survey, and I'm going to have my colleague, Allie Engler, walk you through that survey. The reason why we're collecting these survey data items are so that we can measure and understand the variability and the persistence of impacts, and see if they're explained by some school level or student level factors that we'll be collecting through this survey, and also to understand if students were continuously monitored or what interventions students experienced since 1st grade, from their 1st through their 4th grades. So I will hand it over to Allie, and she will walk you through the survey.
Great, thank you, Akisha. So for our survey data here, we're going to be looking at 2 main factors. The first of these is the school characteristics. That's primarily just going to be changes in administration that were experienced at your school during the cohort time that we're looking at. And then we're going to be looking at the student aspect, looking at their literacy interventions, progress, and monitoring that students received from their 1st to 4th grades. This includes retention of students, the IEP placement, if there was one for the student, continuous monitoring any literacy interventions received. One thing that I would like to comment on for the IEP placement here is we have received quite a few questions regarding whether or not instructors are allowed, or data completers are allowed to indicate if an IEP placement is relevant for students because of confidentiality concerns. However, we as researchers have already gone through our institutional review boards. This has been approved. And then this is also protected under FERPA because we are only collecting this data for research purposes only. So your district might have specific requirements on that. However, you are allowed to collect this data. Now, I'm going to be walking you through the survey itself. And we have received questions in the past asking that survey screens, or that individuals be emailed the survey screens. The best way to do this would actually be to just print out this PowerPoint, as this will have examples of everything that you're going to see on the survey. Now, two main points, similar to our last slide, is that we are just going to have two sections on this survey. The first is asking you to identify and locate students. The second is asking about the school characteristics, namely administration changes and literacy interventions that the student received. For those of you who participated in Cohort 1, you'll notice that we've reduced the survey from 4 sections down to 2. This is based on feedback that we received from last cohort's completers, and we have gotten rid of the curriculum questions for the survey. So this will significantly reduce the amount of time that it should take you to complete the survey. Now, the first screen that you're going to see is asking you to collect students at your school who were in first grade in 2012-13. This is the school date for Cohort 2. Cohort 2 means that students were in first grade in school year 2012-2013. You will then see a list of all of your students at that school who fall into these criteria. And then you will be asked if you have already submitted the state standardized test scores for the 2014-15 and 2015-16 academic years to IDEC. If the student was not retained and progressed normally, these would correspond to the third and fourth grade school years. If you click yes, you will be forwarded on to the rest of the survey. And if you click no, you will be directed to this page. It's just asking you to finish uploading your state's test scores at this link. It's directly linked in here, so you can go straight there. And then once you've completed uploading all these scores to IDEC, return here to the survey. The survey can be accessed at any time via the link that was emailed to you. And simply click in this, simply click in this text box here stating that you confirm that you have completed entry of the state standardized test scores, and then hit continue. The next screen is asking you to help identify locate students. If on our 2 screens beforehand, if you had indicated that yes, you'd already submitted your state standardized test scores, you would be directed here. Now this is asking you to look for students and see if you can locate them for the 2015-16 academic year. And there are 3 categories. Either the student attended the school that they were at for first grade, attended a different school in the same district, or you cannot locate the student at all for 2015-16. As you can see here, for our cohort of students, we have some in each category. 4 we are able to locate and they're still at the same school, easy peasy. The next 2, we know that they're in the same district, but they're at a different school. And these 3 we cannot locate at all. Because of this, these 3 will drop out of your cohort sample and you will not see them from this screen forward. Now for our 2 that we were able to locate, but they attended a different school in the district, you'll be asked an additional question and to see if, knowing that they are at a different school, can you provide literacy intervention information for these students? If the answer is no, like it is for our sample here, then these students will also drop out of your sample panel and you will not see them again from the screen on. However, if you answer yes, you will continue answering questions for them along with the students that you could locate because they attended the same school. Now, that was section 1. We are now on to section 2, and this is the final section. From here on out, the survey is printer friendly, so you're welcome to print out these pages and use hard copies to go around and consult with colleagues as necessary. And then you can come back in at any time in our 6-week survey window from April 9th through May 18th. Click on the link in the survey email and it will bring you back to this page. Something that I probably should have mentioned earlier is that the survey platform that we use does not require a save button. So all of your entries are saved in real time. And so if you completed the prior section, section 1, where you located the students and you decided not to enter anything because you were going to go back and do all the student-related questions later, when you click the link in your survey, you will be brought right back here and all of your prior information will have been saved. So on to our first questions in this section. The first question is, did the school administrator change between students 2013-14 and 14-15 academic years, the 14-15, 15-16 academic year, or the 15-16, 16-17 academic year? This is just a simple yes/no binary question. The next question is asking what grade levels were the students that you were able to locate. Notice that we are down to 4 from our original panel of 9. So it's asking what grade level they were in for each of the subsequent. We know that they were in first grade in 12-13. So now you're asked to identify from the drop-down menu what grade they were in 13-14, 14-15, and 15-16. Now, the whole point of this question is for us to see if the student was retained or if even they managed to skip a grade. So assuming that that the student progressed normally, this would be expected to be 2nd grade, 3rd grade, and 4th grade. However, all of the drop-downs are populated with numbers 1 through 5. So this should account for any retention as well as any skip grades. So if Florence progressed normally, she could be 2, 3, and 4 here. And then if Regina was, let's say, held back in 1st grade, then this would be 1, 2, and 3, and so on and so forth. And you will need to answer all drop-down questions for all of the students in your panel. This goes back, the next question is for our IEP students again, and this is just asking if the student had an IEP with a reasoning designation in the academic year 13-14, 14-15, or 15-16. This is a simple binary yes/no question, but please make sure that you enter data for each of the 3 years for each of your students in your panel. Next, we're asking if the students were continuously monitored on at least a monthly basis for reading problems in 13-14, 14-15, and 15-16. And similar to our last IEP question, it's a simple yes/no binary question. Now, this is the last slide, or I'm sorry, this is the last question type that you are going to see on the survey. You will see this for each student in your panel. Their name will populate here. And it is asking what literacy interventions they received in their 13-14, 14-15, and 15-16 academic years. There's a column for each 3 of the years, and then we have auto-populated on the left-hand side some of the most commonly cited literacy intervention programs. We realize that this is not an exhaustive list, so we have also included 3 other categories at the bottom where if you do not see an intervention that your students received, you can go ahead and type that in and then check the intervention for the appropriate years. We do ask that you indicate an intervention for each year. You can click as many interventions as are necessary, and if the student did not receive any intervention, at the very bottom of the page, you will see a none row, and just go ahead and click the checkbox associated with the none. That just helps us make sure that if a student truly did not receive an intervention. And then after that, you will, after your intervention data is entered for all of your students, you will see this page. This is the last screen that you will see before your responses are considered submitted. And please make sure that everything that you have submitted up to this point is correct. We have a back button throughout the survey, so at any time you can go backwards and forwards using continue or back. Because once you hit continue here, the survey will be locked. You will not be able to do anything further. And if you decide later on that there were that results were incorrect or that you inputted incorrect information in the survey, we will have to generate an entirely new link and you'll have to start the survey over from scratch. So please, we ask that before you hit continue here, that you use the back button as necessary to go back and review your answers just to make sure everything is good and ready to go. Then once you do hit continue, you will receive a page saying that your response has been recorded, as well as our email address that you can contact us at if you have any further questions regarding the survey. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Akisha, who's going to just do some final dates and wrap us up.
So yes, I just want to reiterate from Allie's going through the survey that the survey is due May 18th, and also that the survey is much shorter than it was the first time around. We removed those curriculum questions, which were the most time-consuming questions from the survey. So this should go much smoother this time around. But if you do have questions, we have a contact email that you can use as you go through the survey if you have questions. The survey will launch April 9th. You have until May 18th. The launch of the survey means that you'll receive an email from CRASP with a survey link in that email. That's a personalized survey link. You can access it anytime. It saves automatically, as Elliot stated. So if you need to leave and come back, it's fine. And so, but also please check your spam mail if you do not receive it on April 9th. Check your spam folder to see if it's landed there, because we had a little bit of trouble with getting them directly to some of the teachers and teacher leaders. Like I said, here are some additional resources that you can use. We have a web page for the study, and we also have a frequently asked questions page and a page that reviews just specifically the data collection activities that we've gone over today. Should you have any questions that you might think are frequent, you can find them either on either of those two pages. Our email address, should you have any survey-related questions or questions about the overall study, is cresp-rr@udel.edu. And you can always reach the help desk if you have any test data questions or general questions. And I think that's all we have.
All right, so I'll just follow up quickly, folks. I know we've got 2 emails listed on there for you to send your questions. I know sometimes you're not sure who should get what questions, even though we've tried to clearly define who gets what. If you're ever in doubt, just send your question over to the IDEC help desk at helpdesk@idecweb.us, and we will triage it to the right person so we can get your questions answered. All right, ladies and gentlemen, well, thank you for watching this rebroadcast of our March 29th podcast of the RR follow-up survey with our researchers from the University of Delaware. And ladies and gentlemen, we will talk data to you later.